More courgettes, or as I like to call them, mourgettes. Today we're going to make courgette muffins. So yeah, lots and lots of courgettes in the garden, as always happens if you grow courgettes, but that's fine. We're going to make some courgette cakes, but not your standard courgette loaf, because that only uses one courgette, typically. I'm going to make something that uses maybe two, or one big one. This is a recipe based on a weigh the same sponge cake, where you weigh your eggs in their shells, and then you add the same weight of sugar, flour and fat, and just mix it all together, and it makes a pretty good basic sponge. I've noticed, and I've done this many times, you can also add the same weight of another ingredient. So if you weigh your eggs, add the same weight of sugar, flour, fat and grated carrot, you get a kind of a carrot cake. If you add the same weight of raisins, you get a kind of raisin cake. You can add another portion of something. So lots of flexibility there. It usually works. And so we're going to do the same here today, and we're going to add the same weight of courgettes. 186 grams. So we're going to remember 186 grams. We're going to have 186 grams of self-raising flour. Nailed it. 186. Now we're going to have 186 grams of caster sugar. 186. And you don't need to be this precise. Next, 186 grams of fat. Now, my old electric beater is broken, so I'm going to use vegetable oil and melted butter in here. So I've got the rest of this pack of butter. I will just cut that into pieces and we'll melt it in the microwave. And this is salted butter, so this kind of replaces the pinch of salt that you'll find in a lot of recipes. So I'll just melt that in the microwave. Before we add the fat, I'm just going to add another dry ingredient, which is ground mixed spice. This particular blend is cinnamon, coriander seed, dill seeds, ginger, cloves and nutmeg. The composition of these kind of pudding spice, mixed spice things is quite variable, but it's one of those things where when you mix about 5 different spices you get something that's very similar. So that was about a rounded teaspoonful, and we'll just disperse those dry ingredients a little bit. And we have 186 grams to make up, so however much this butter is, which is 65 grams, and then I'm going to make that up to 186 with sunflower oil. There we go. Now we can get rid of those scales and we'll add in these 3 eggs. Alright, now to go along with everything else, I want 186 grams of grated courgette, but I want to weigh it after I squeeze the water out. Now I'm guessing it's probably going to be nearly all of this big courgette, or 2 kind of regular sized ones like you'd get in the shops in the UK. It's quite a lot of courgette there. I reckon that'll probably do it. I won't grate this second one just yet. So back with this cake mix, which I haven't mixed yet. So I've got a handful of courgette. I'm just going to squeeze that here to get the liquid out. You can see how much water is coming out of that. Okay, and then that lot goes in there. It's about 95 grams. Probably want about 2 of those. Okay. Well, 200 grams, we've gone over. I've got 210 grams of courgette in my weigh the same cake, so it doesn't weigh the same, but I'm going to run with it. In fact, you know what? We're going to have nearly 250 grams of grated courgette. So not exactly weigh the same, but I think it'll be okay. And now everything just gets mixed together. And this was the reason for using liquid fat in here, so using oil rather than butter. If I had my electric beater, I could beat in some softened butter or vegetable fat, but I don't have an electric beater at the moment, so this is all done by hand. Now you could use brown sugar and you'll get a darker coloured muffin out of this, which might go quite well with the spices. It doesn't take a lot of mixing, and we're there. And this mixture should make about 12 standard muffins. It's really, really gloopy and difficult to get into the muffin cases cleanly. Just really a case of sharing it out amongst all of these muffin cases. We'll make some semblance of effort to get those things into the cases. So more or less even. Those are now going to go in the oven, 180 degrees Celsius, for about 25 minutes, or until a stick stuck in the middle comes out clean. So those have had about half an hour. 25 minutes wasn't quite enough. I'm just going to test them. So just a toothpick into the middle and it comes out clean, so they're cooked. I'll let them cool before we try and take them out of that tray. Now, you'll notice they haven't puffed up and overflowed. They've risen, but they haven't puffed up and overflowed the cases. If you want them to do that, like the muffins you get in the shops, then you have to add more baking powder than I did. I just used the baking powder that was mixed into the self-raising flour. So let's have a look at these way not exactly the same courgette muffins. So they're just incredibly moist and soft inside. Look at that. So look how lovely and moist and soft that is. But what does it taste like? Really good. You can't really taste courgette. You can just taste the kind of sweetness of it. It's almost like kind of grated fresh coconut. Really weird. So there we go, another really great way to use up surplus courgettes. So just some final kind of shrimp studio thoughts on these cakes. It makes a very nice light moist cake, which even though it doesn't rise a lot, is still really nice and soft and open textured. Some of the softness of cakes comes from the kind of absorption of the liquids into the dry ingredients or evaporation of the liquids. So it's not at all heavy or dense. It is actually very sweet. I think the sugar could be cut back to 2/3 or even half the amount I added, because the courgettes have got their own sweetness, which of course is just sugar because courgettes are fruit. Anyway, I think that is a success. I am interested to know how far we could push this. How much more courgette could we put in here before it stops becoming a cake? I think probably we're close to the limit already. But I reckon maybe another 50 grams or something of courgette could go in there and it would still be a cake. I wonder where the peak of the enjoyment is. I'm tempted to run a lot of experiments where I had different amounts, but that would also mean a lot of waste, so I'm not going to do that. At some point the resemblance to cake will peak, and at some point the enjoyment of the eating experience will peak, and that will represent the maximum amount of courgette you could reasonably add to this recipe. As it is, a little bit more than the same amount works just fine. So I hope that was interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.